I'm standing on the oldest bridge on I-5, and this is about to change forever. Every single day, over 140,000 vehicles cross this bridge. The northbound span, built in 1917. That makes it 109 years old. And if a major earthquake hits the Cascadia subduction zone, engineers say this thing could come down. On top of that, the bridge still has a lift span that opens up to 480 times a year, shutting down Interstate 5, the main artery of the entire West Coast, every single time a tall boat needs to pass through. If you live in Ridgefield or anywhere in Clark County, this bridge is your lifeline. And after 2 decades of debates, studies, a failed attempt, and now a price tag that's ballooned to $14.4 billion, it's finally actually moving forward. Today I'm going to break down everything you need to know about the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, what's being built, what it's going to cost you, and when you'll actually be driving across it. So let's rewind. The original bridge opened in 1917. It was the first automobile bridge across the Columbia River between Oregon and Washington. Think about that. This thing was built when World War I was still going on. A second span was added in 1968 to handle southbound traffic, but the original northbound span, still standing, still carrying thousands of cars every day. By the 2000s, it was obvious this bridge needed to go. Traffic was a nightmare, 10 hours of congestion every single day. The bridge lifts were causing chaos, and the seismic concerns were growing as we learned more about the Cascadia earthquake risk. So from 2005 to 2014, they tried the first time. It was called the Columbia River Crossing, or CRC. They spent nearly $200 million on planning and consultants. They got a federal record of decision in 2011. But in 2013, the Washington state legislature refused to fund it, and the whole thing collapsed. Problems included an untested bridge design that independent experts called unbuildable, flawed traffic projections, and a design that was too low to get Coast Guard approval. It was a mess. Fast forward to 2017, the project was reborn as the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, or IBR. Critics have called it basically the same project, rebranded, but the program has made it further than the CRC ever did. And now, as of 2026, it's crossed some major milestones. All right, so here's what the new bridge will actually look like. They're building 2 new bridges side by side to replace the 2 existing spans. The new East Bridge, that's the upstream bridge, will carry all northbound I-5 traffic on its upper deck, and it'll have a shared use bike and pedestrian path on the lower deck. The new West Bridge downstream will carry southbound traffic and is being designed to accommodate 2-way light rail. Here's one of the biggest changes. It's a fixed span bridge, no more lift span. In January 2026, the Coast Guard approved a 116-foot clearance, which means over 99% of all river traffic can pass underneath without any interruption. That alone is huge. No more sitting in I-5 watching a drawbridge go up while you're trying to get to work. Each direction will have 3 through lanes, plus 1 or 2 auxiliary lanes with full safety shoulders. Lane widths go from the current 10.5 feet up to the standard 12 feet. And the bike and pedestrian path will have a maximum grade of 4.5%, which actually exceeds ADA requirements. But the bridge itself is just one piece. The full project is about 5 miles of I-5 corridor improvements. That includes rebuilt interchanges at Marine Drive, Hayden Island, SR14, Mill Plain, 4th Plain, and SR500. Hayden Island gets a new local arterial bridge so residents don't have to hop on the freeway just to get around. And the Mill Plain interchange is being redesigned to handle the tall freight trucks going to and from the Port of Vancouver. Now, if you've been following this project at all, you know that the light rail is the most controversial piece of it all. Some people think it's essential. Some people think the whole project is just a light rail project disguised as a bridge. One Washington lawmaker literally called the IBR a light rail project in search of a bridge. Here's what was originally planned. TriMet's Max Yellow Line would extend 1.9 miles from the Portland Expo Center across the new bridge into downtown Vancouver, ending at an Evergreen Boulevard station near the downtown library. That plan was approved by local and regional officials in 2022. But when the cost estimates came out in March 2026, the program said they needed to scale back. The light rail would now only go to the Vancouver waterfront, basically where the bridge meets land, instead of going that extra half mile into downtown. The Evergreen station got pushed to a future phase. Vancouver was not happy about this. The city council voted unanimously to oppose the shorter route in April 2026, saying Vancouver was not getting treated equally and that the plan favored Portland. And just the other week, May 13th, 2026, the C-Tran board voted 7-2, urging the program to stick with the original Evergreen Boulevard endpoint. Their argument, the Evergreen station would connect to all 3 of C-Tran's bus rapid transit lines, making it an actual transit hub for all of Clark County. Dropping it at the waterfront makes it much less useful for Washington commuters. So let's talk money, because the numbers on this project are staggering. In March 2026, officials announced the full 5-mile corridor would cost between $13.5 and $15.2 billion, with the most likely number being around $14.4 billion. That's more than double the previous estimate of around $6 billion. Now, the way they're dealing with this is a phased approach. Phase 1, which includes replacing both bridge spans, connecting them to I-5 and extending light rail to Vancouver, is estimated at $7.65 billion. If they build the bridge to accommodate light rail but don't actually install it, that drops to $5.9 billion. So where's the money coming from? Right now, they've secured about $5.45 billion from combined sources. That includes $2.1 billion in federal grants, $600 million from the Mega Grant Program, and $1.5 billion from the Bridge Investment Program, both awarded under the Biden administration's infrastructure law. Another $100 million came in February of 2026, specifically earmarked for light rail. Both states have kicked in about $1 billion each, and they expect to raise about $1.25 billion through tolling. Here's the elephant in the room though. There's still a massive funding gap, and there's an urgency to it. The program needs to obligate nearly $1 billion in federal funds by September 2026 or risk losing them. On the federal side, Trump's transportation secretary did pledge to maintain already awarded funding, but a separate $30 million grant for an I-5 lid project in Vancouver has been frozen, so there's still some uncertainty about federal commitment going forward. This is the part that hits closest to home, especially if you commute across the bridge. The project includes variable price tolling, meaning the toll changes based on the time of day. Washington and Oregon have approved 4 toll scenarios. On the low end, you're looking at a $1.55 one way. On the high end, it's $4.70. That's per crossing, per direction. If you're a daily commuter, you could be paying anywhere from around $60 to nearly $190 a month, depending on the scenario and when you're driving. There is a low income program, a 50% discount if you're at or below 200% of the federal poverty level. All scenarios include reduced weekend rates, and tribal members and low income residents on both sides of the river are eligible for exemptions. Originally, tolling on the existing bridge was supposed to start in spring of 2026, but that's been pushed back to spring of 2027. So you've got a little more time before that kicks in. If you're watching this from Richfield, and I know a lot of you are, here's what you need to know. This project is both great news and a reality check. The good news, when it's done, no more bridge lifts. Wider lanes, better shoulders, rebuilt interchanges, the entire I-5 corridor through Vancouver and across the river will flow better. For Richfield commuters heading into Portland, that's a game changer. And if the light rail extension happens, it could eventually give Clark County residents an alternative to sitting in traffic. Here's the reality check. Construction is going to be 6 to 7 years. If it starts in 2028, you're looking at disruptions until at least 2034. And tolling is coming to the existing bridge in 2027 before construction even starts. If you commute daily, that's a real hit to the wallet. There's another angle too. Richfield is proactively planning for this. The city is seeking $5 million from the state legislator for a new road that would connect the I-5 Battleground Exchange to the south end of the city. The idea is to give Richfield residents an alternate route and take pressure off the 179th Street exit, which anyone who lives here knows is already a mess during rush hour. So let me lay out the timeline as it stands right now. The final supplemental environmental impact statement was published in April 2026. The federal government, FHWA, and FTA is expected to issue the amended record of decision this spring or summer. That's the big green light. Once that happens, they'll start procurement to bring on a contractor in 2027. Tolling begins on the existing bridge in spring of 2027. Actual construction is expected to start in 2028. The new bridge could be open to traffic by around 2034. Then comes the demolition of the old bridge and completion of the light rail, roughly 2035 to 2037. Now, I want to be real with you. This project has been almost ready to start before. The CRC spent nearly $200 million and never broke ground. Between the CRC and the IBR, they've spent nearly $500 million on consultants and planning without ever pouring concrete. But this time, the environmental review is done, the Coast Guard has signed off, over $5 billion in funding is secured, and there are hard federal deadlines on spending that money. This is the closest it's ever been to actually happening. Look, whether you love this project or you think it's an overpriced boondoggle, one thing is undeniable. We are driving across a 109-year-old bridge every day in one of the most seismically active regions in the country on the most important highway on the West Coast. Something has to change. The Interstate Bridge Replacement is the biggest infrastructure project in the Pacific Northwest. It's going to reshape how we move between Oregon and Washington for the next century. And it's going to affect every single person in Clark County, whether it's through tolling, construction delays, or eventually a much better commute. I'll be tracking every update on this project as it develops. If you want to stay informed on everything happening in our area, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below. I want to know, are you for or against this project? What's your biggest concern? Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.